What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to talk to you about wiring out or wiring up Expor taillights, specifically on a 94-95 Mustang. And I'll give you a couple tips and tricks, and then once we're done with that, I'll kind of give you a quick update on the 95 Cobra. Let's get right into it. Alright, so starting off at the back, if you're not sure what Expor taillights are, they basically look essentially like a stock taillight, except for a stock taillight, the third bar down here is completely red. Well, aside from the reverse light cut out there. This gives it a nice look and gives you an actual spot for a turn signal place in your taillight, essentially, because from the factory, your turn signal would blink all red with the brake light as well, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit. However, this is kind of what they look like. Export lights were offered overseas, like, Japan, Europe, stuff like that, everywhere but the US. So these are kind of a cool factory Ford mod to do on your US spec car. So getting right into it. So I bought these taillights without wiring harnesses. So I had to make my own wiring harness here and here. Now they look nice in factory. I tried to reuse all of the factory tape and do it as clean as I possibly could. Now there's plenty of write-ups on how to wire up the taillight harness, so I'm not going to get too much into that. However, I will kind of give you a little quick tip on the sockets. So the turn signal socket takes a 3-prong socket, kind of like this, 1, 2, 3. This is a 2-prong right here, kind of a quick difference. However, when you get these 3-prong sockets, most of them are going to have 3 wires coming out of them. You have your ground there, your minor, and your major. Now you want to keep your ground and your major. So instead of leaving your other wire for your minor, just clipping it or taping it up, the easiest way that I kind of found was, this is a lead from this little socket here, and they just kind of plug right in. Sorry. Kind of something like that. You got to put a little bit more effort into it, but in order to get to this, you have this little waterproof plug here that you got to take out, and once you take that out, it reveals these. Now you can just remove this by using a pair of pliers, and they just, obviously it just pulls right out. And then you can, have a much cleaner install. If you have a spare plug laying around, you can even use a 2-prong or a 2-wire plug to make it even that much cleaner. Not that anybody ever sees it, and it's probably not going to make a big difference, but if you're into that sort of thing, it definitely helps. Now, when I wired mine, I got a spare 94-95 harness, so I didn't mess up any of my original parts. That way, if I decided I wanted to go back to the original stuff, I always can. So with that in mind, I went ahead and, like I said, I bought another pair of 94-95 taillights to use the harness off of them, and this is actually a harness off of a 9904. I think they're pretty much all the same. The connectors may be a little bit different throughout the years, but they'll all still work. I did that because you're going to need 2 extra bulbs, obviously for the taillight on each side, or the turn signal on each side. Now I wanted to have all my wires the same color, so I went ahead and chopped off these 2 orange wires for my new turn signals. I wanted all the wires to be the same color and just make for a clean install. Now, originally from the factory, how it's wired up is, so on the passenger side, you have orange with a light blue stripe for your brake lights. And from the factory, on an original taillight, your brake light and your turn signal is a part of the same wire. Now, in order to run the Expor taillights, you have to basically wire up your turn signal to your brake light turn signal wiring harness, essentially taking the brake lights out of the harness. And doing so, you have to run a new brake light wire, which is this one right here. Now you just take your top two brake light plugs and run a wire off of them, run them through the harness. And I have mine ran through here. There's a little bit of slack left on the wire here. That way if I need to pull the tail light out, change a bulb or something, I can do that without having to clip the harness or something like that. To make it super clean install, I wish I could have found a Expor 5-prong plug here, and I would have just, you know, put it in there, and then I could have taped it through the harness here, and it would have been much cleaner, and I could have removed it at any point in time, but those are getting kind of tough to find nowadays. So this will work for now. But I have it taped up, running all the way along here. It runs back behind the trunk hatch, all the way over here. Now this is the wire coming off of this side. Again, a little bit of slack looped up in here, and it kind of runs down, and they meet at this junction here. And then this is where I have them soldered together here, and then they go into one wire. Now this is kind of what I find to be a little bit of an easier way to do it. A lot of people, what they do is they'll come up here to their third brake light wiring harness, and kind of hard to see, but you see those two red with green stripe wires? A lot of people will tap into those for their third brake light signal to have your working taillights. However, I did not want to mess up my original harness. I didn't want to tap into any wires. I didn't want to do anything like that. So instead, what I did was I went ahead and I started looking at this harness, and I noticed that right here, again, there's two red and green wires. So seeing that it has the turn signal wire and everything else, this is obviously your taillight harness, I figured, well, why not just run the third brake light signal off of those two wires? And originally from the factory, you're going to have a loop here on that plug, and it'll kind of look something like this. So one of them will plug into here, and then your other one will plug into there where that other black wire is. So I went ahead and depinned that connector, and what I mean by depinning is you just unplug it, and this is kind of a quick example here. You can see this red little tab in here. You just push that tab up and you can pull this out, and you'll see these little tabs in here. When you pull that out, you push the tab forward, and that will allow you to release this pin and pull it completely out, and it'll look something like this when you pull it out. And then that just goes up in your connector, and it stops it from moving in this little area right here, so it doesn't pull out. And you can do that with basically all wiring harnesses. So once you pull this out, that'll have the same kind of red style of plug. You pull out your little loop there, and what I did was, originally how I wired it up, kind of in the testing phase, I wired one wire here going to one tail light, and I used this other hole here for the other taillight. Now I tested to see if that worked, and what happened was only one of the taillights worked. I believe the left side taillight was the only one that worked. So knowing that my bulbs are good and knowing that all of my wiring is good, I went ahead, and at that point, that's when I ran both taillights to this one wire, and both of the taillights worked flawlessly, you know, no issues there. So I knew all my wiring was good. Now, when you do this conversion, you have to depin a connector from under the steering column, or I've seen people cut them next to the driver's side kick panel. And like I said, being that I would like to return this car to stock maybe one day, or if I go to sell it, or if I change my opinion on what I like or whatever, I always wanted the ability to turn it back to stock very easily. And I can do that by just putting this loop back in there, putting my stock taillights in, and that's pretty much it. So I don't have to worry about repinning a wire up there, or dropping the steering column, or pulling the kick panel out, anything like that. I think this is a very, very good way to do it. It's a lot easier to do it. It's definitely a lot quicker. And to me, I think it's a lot cleaner of an install as well, to have your brake light wire actually going to that pin versus, maybe like butt connected or something up here. So that's how I did it. I kind of wanted to give you guys a brief rundown of how I did it. Said it's a lot cleaner. If you want to do it yourself, It is that left side plug, or one down into the left there, just wire it into that one and leave the other side unplugged, and that's essentially the same as depinning it from the front. So now that I kind of ran you guys through that and how I did that, I will kind of show you that it works here in a minute. All right, maybe not a minute for you guys. It'll be pretty instantaneous, but here we go. All right, go ahead and step on the brakes. See, they both lit up perfectly. Go ahead and left turn signal. It's flashing how it should. She let off the brake. Shows you that they're not still on. Right turn signal. That one's flashing as well, and they're flashing slow, not fast like they should be. There you go. Everything works how it should. All right, now that I've kind of given you guys a brief rundown on how I wired those up and an example of them working, the only other thing you have to do besides create a wiring harness for your taillights and depin that one connector is you're going to have to remove your original turn signal flasher. Now this is an original flasher. They're located up under here. Here's your fuse panel right here, and this little metal tab is where your flasher is going to be at, right there. So the aftermarket tab, the one that you're going to need, is an EP27 trailering. Make sure it says trailering. That's the one that you need. Most all of them do though. But the aftermarket one does not have a clip to go in here, hence why it is zip tied to make sure it doesn't fall out or anything like that. So that's really about it. You don't have to worry about, now once you obviously I'm gonna, tuck that back in there, but that's kind of just for display purposes to let you guys see that. So I mean that's really about it. You don't have to worry about dropping your steering column. You don't have to worry about pulling your kick panel out and cutting a wire back there. You have to do essentially no work inside the car. It's a much easier mod at that point, at least in my opinion. And like I said, it looks a lot cleaner, and you can go back to factory a lot easier if you do choose to do that. Now, I said I'd kind of give you guys an update on the 95, and I guess we'll get into that. So, quick update. This is how the 95 looks now. Looks a bit different than the last time you guys saw it. It's got a set of Victory Forged wheels on it now, and those are 18 by 8 in the front and 18 by 11s in the rear. The rear has a 315/30 18, and the front has a 245/40 18. I think they fit the car really well. It took a long time to get them, 7 months, just about 7 months to get them. I think it was worth the wait. Let me know what you guys think. So aside from doing the Expor taillights and the wheels, I lowered it on a set of H&R Super Sport springs, front and rear. The rear does not rub. I do wish it was maybe a hair lower in the rear, but I can definitely live with it, knowing that I don't have to roll my original quarters. Again, I kind of want to keep it to a point where I can return it to stock at any point in time, and I didn't really modify the car in a way that is irreversible. Now, also, if you remember watching my dad's video, his car has a Cobra decal similar to these, except for his has a little Cobra logo on them. Those are long discontinued and you cannot get them. So that's about the closest that I could get on that. Now also, the Export cars had Export taillights, Export mirrors, and Export fender flares. I also wanted to upgrade to the Export mirrors. Now these give you a nice paintable cap, and they also fold in versus being a fixed mirror. Some would say maybe the original 03 Cobra mirror. Now they are a bit different than the 03 Cobra mirror, at least the bases are anyways. The bases are completely flat here, and 03 Cobra mirror is not. So you can technically bolt an 03 Cobra mirror onto an SN-95, however it won't look the best. Won't fit the best. Now the last thing that I've done, well, not quite the last, one more thing. I went ahead and modified my stock antenna. A lot of the antennas they sell on the market today don't have the original hex style down here. They're just circular with like 2 little slots to put a wrench in. So little details. I can kind of go more into detail and maybe do a video on how to modify an original antenna, but it's not that difficult. So I try to line them up best I can with the roof line there. I don't like them super short, but so this is oh, also last thing, I also went ahead and put a running horse back in the grill. When I bought the car, it came with a snake, and I'm not crazy about having the snake in the grill. I know everybody likes them to match the fenders, but this is the way they came from the factory, with a running horse. All Cobras came with a running horse. If somebody says otherwise, they're wrong. So, but this is how the car looks. Let me know what you guys think. Like I said, I think it turned out really good. Wheels fit really nice and flush. They don't stick out or poke. And I was also able to retain my original quad shocks in the rear. All I had to do was flip them. Also did a quick paint correction and a nice wax. And that's how she looks now. So, let me know what you guys think. Let me know if this video was helpful. Please subscribe, and I look forward to doing a couple more videos for you guys. Have a good one.